Welcome back to another Hearts of Iron 4 country template guide. Now, there's going to be a couple really big differences in this video compared to the last two. First off, we're only going to about 1939 in terms of our technology and our doctrine. Don't worry about this, I just had to do this so I could get rid of Grand Battle Plan, do all this, so we're not actually receiving any bonuses from Mass Assault. As you can see, we've only got 1939 technology since the United Kingdom is expected to go to war with the majority of the Axis except for Japan in 1939, especially in historical mode. So that's the reason we have all that set up the way that is. Second off, some of our templates are only covering light self-propelled artillery compared to our normal, medium self-propelled artillery, because if you look here, the light self-propelled artillery has the exact same soft attack as the medium self-propelled artillery one, except it just cost more. You do get a couple other big bonuses, but I'll let that be up to you. But to me, other than the armor and maybe the hardness, there's really not big enough of a difference between these two to make any kind of difference in terms of what to pick over the other one. Oh, and this one cost a lot more fuel production, so just to keep that in mind since a lot of these are going to be light. Then third and finally, if anyone has any interest in watching other country template guides, I do have a link to a card in the top right that will show you Germany, the United States, and other countries that I will be probably adding over time after this video has been released. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into this country guide. So first off, our Garrison Division is pretty much the same as all of our Garrison Divisions in the past. Now, this Garrison Division is probably only going to be helpful for guarding coastlines, ports, maybe, and I do mean maybe Gibraltar if you add a support AT gun to it if National Spain can join the Axis in multiplayer. Maybe the ports in Africa, stuff like that. This really isn't something you should probably be using on the front line at all. It's just made to guard islands and other things along those lines. Second off, we have a anti-tank gun division. Now, the difference between this one and a lot of the other ones is, first off, you see no support companies. You don't see a lot of this other kind of crazy stuff I've added to the past. The only reason it's set up the way it is because the United Kingdom is really low on manpower normally, and this is a very cheap template. As you can see here, we have a really good amount of hard attack. We have a very small amount of soft attack, which isn't going to matter too much because these are supposed to be able to be used along with frontline units because their organization, their entrenchment bonus, and their piercing stats along with their defense. So these are actually good enough to be able to mix in with basic infantry divisions. However, I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend just trying to overlap them, doing a frontline with main infantry divisions, put these over top of the old ones. So something very important to remember also when using these, if you come up against an issue where the Axis somehow get air superiority, don't forget to add a support AA, and that will boost up some of your other bonuses here, but mainly it's going to be there to help you take down casts so your division doesn't take too much damage. Next up is our Infantry Division. Now, this one is actually made so it can go to Africa, British Malaya, really wherever it is that it's needed. As you can see, like all templates that are 7.2, it's pretty much the same setup, except we have a support anti-tank gun, but only 4 support equipment. The reason it's only got 4 support equipment here is there's really nothing else you should really add too much. Maybe a recon company, but there's really nothing else you should really add to this template to kind of beef up the stats the way it is. It's already very good in terms of what it's going to be doing on the front line, whether it's going to be holding, trying to maybe push a little bit, but really it's a good setup for the United Kingdom to use against Germany because it has an anti-tank gun. So you have a 37 piercing, a small amount of heart attack, so you'll cause some damage to enemy tanks, not too much, but this should be a pretty good division to go up against tanks, and some line holding infantry is what that idea is. Next up, we have our African Infantry Division. This one is set up to pretty much defend in Africa because, as you can see, unlike a normal 7.2, we've removed one of our infantry battalions and added 2 anti-tank guns. The reason I've done that is because these guys are, again, expected to fight in Africa. And if Germany is very competent in multiplayer and they're a little bit gutsy, they've got really good, a really good idea that they can push and break Alamein, you're probably going to expect to see some German tanks or maybe even Italian tanks in Africa if you're playing multiplayer. That division will help out just in case they do somehow break the South African heavy tank division if you're in multiplayer. In this way, you'll be able to still be able to defend that little spot in El Alamein with something that has really good piercing, which is 49, and some decent heart attack, so you can cause some damage to their tanks while the South African tank division is trying to recuperate and maybe move back in to El Alamein once it's finished, well, getting reinforcements and getting extra tanks and so on. Now let's talk about the 40 wits. Again, the reason that these are all, there's not too many templates compared to the other videos is the United Kingdom is mostly relying on the Australian divisions, British Raj, and all that kind of stuff. They should really only be using these templates in mostly defensive operations and really trying to use the tanks in offensive operations in Africa or so on. Since the Allies get Africa, the United States should be able to help out and invade Normandy and all that kind of stuff. So just remember that when looking at these templates. Next up, we have this is actually a lot better than you would expect just looking at it. This has 684 defense. With combat modifiers and things like that, you should have almost probably 1,000 defense once this thing goes into combat. As you can see, we have a really good amount of piercing and a huge amount of heart attack, which will go up a lot more around 1939 mid to late, and even 1940, because once you get the next anti-tank gun level, you're probably going to be looking at a good, I would say maybe 65 to 70 piercing on these divisions. You're going to go up quite a bit once you get that level. Now, if the enemy has air superiority, as always, make sure to add a support AA, and if you have to use these guys in Africa, please make sure you use a logistics company. You're going to go down to 1.64 from 2.05, so that's going to help out a lot. Next up, we have a counter all. This division, along with the anti-tank division, work amazing whenever you're defending the Belgian border, or again, if you're having to defend down here in Africa. These also do work pretty well over here in British Malaya against the Japanese player if you're worried about that at all. If you're going to use these in British Malaya, I would recommend taking out a couple of these anti-tank guns and maybe just adding an extra infantry battalion to boost up your stats that way. So that is a couple really good infantry division templates, these last two I just showed you guys, the 40 wits. So now let's talk about tank divisions. Now, like I said, light self-propelled guns are pretty much almost no difference than a medium self-propelled gun 1. The only difference is whenever you get medium self-propelled artillery 2. Other than that, they're pretty much the exact same. So as you can see here, we have a tank division. This is pretty much only made to do very tiny pushes and breakthroughs. If you can pretty much double any of these up and get twice of the amount of units and stuff like that in here, that is very highly recommended if you can actually supply enough to double all these up instead of me showing completely different templates. So just remember, if you have enough, just double all these up. So let me show you this really quick here. If we were to swap over to a medium self-propelled artillery compared to our light self-propelled artillery, our soft attack, hard attack, defense, none of them move. All that goes up is our breakthrough by 1, which makes no difference. Armor goes up by 3. That might make a tiny bit of difference, but nothing really to worry about. I wouldn't recommend that because of the whole stats and everything. And even though it says it increases our piercing, it actually doesn't. So all that goes up is a weight, supply use, self-propelled artillery, which costs a lot more, and the also important fuel capacity goes up 46. So use light self-propelled artillery until you get medium self-propelled artillery 2. Now this one has an anti-tank gun in it, so it can go up against a lot of enemy tank divisions with its armor and piercing level. Next up, we're going to go to Tank Division 2. Now this one here is made so it can it's not made to push infantry. It's made to go up and do tank battles because we have a medium tank destroyer here. As you can see, we have 56 piercing, 35 armor, and really good hard attack and some good soft attack. Whenever using this, make sure this has a support anti-tank gun in it, support artillery, signal company, and engineer company. I would also recommend a support AA depending on if they have air superiority or not, or a recon company. Maintenance companies aren't too important right now with this template. You might lose a few tanks, maybe 10, 15 a battle, but hopefully it's the UK. You're not going to have so many tank divisions out on the field where that's going to actually cause really big issues for you. So I would just recommend something like this if you're worried about enemy tank divisions, and double it up if you are having the issue where you need more anti-tank kind of stuff on the field and you don't have enough manpower to do these kind of things. So these should work pretty well. For our last two, we are covering this one right here, which is a really good tiny 20 width division that again can do pretty much almost everything the last one can. The only difference is it has some more organization, and again it has a tank destroyer. Now this one is actually able to go down to Africa because we have, as you can see, a logistics company in it. So compared to the last one here, instead of the artillery, we swapped that out for a logistics company, and we also went ahead and got some more motorized, no, my bad, we got rid of 2 of the tanks and added some self-propelled artillery, so we have a lot more, as you can tell, soft attack. It's only about 20 or 15, but again, once you get medium self-propelled artillery 2, you can swap those out and that'll help out a lot with that. Finally, for our last template, all we do is just swap out the tank destroyers. So pretty much, again, this is just almost like a 7.2, except we have a maintenance company in here. Well, it's not exactly a 7.2, but you get the idea. So this is pretty much like before. It's made to go down to Africa. It's made to go down to all these situations. But this one right here is more something you could double up and use for D-Day if you are worried about maybe major tank losses. And that's why the maintenance company is in there to help that out a little bit. So I know it's a really short one compared to the last few country template guides. But again, the United Kingdom is not really supposed to be in a 99% of the infantry divisions on the battlefield. That's supposed to be France, that's supposed to be the United States, that's supposed to be your, your puppets, and you can easily take their weapon or their troops and stuff. To do that, if you have the DLC, you just really quick right-click, request forces like that, and pretty much over like a day, you instantly get all their divisions. So that does require, I believe, it's Death or Dishonor DLC or the Together for Victory DLC. One of those two required to do that. But anyway, so yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed those, and if you have any recommendations for countries to do next, make sure to go down in the comment section below, and please, also, if you guys have any better templates that you would recommend for the United Kingdom, go ahead down there and post them as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Stay awesome.